We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. Anniversary dinner. For one, there's something particularly cruel about watching a candle burn down while waiting for someone who's not coming. Across from me sits an empty chair, perfectly arranged napkin, untouched wine glass, and a menu still unopened. The waiter has come by 3 times now, once to pour the water, once to take my order, and the last time just to ask, gently, if I wanted him to pack everything to go. I said no. Not yet. I want to believe there's still time for her to walk through that door, looking rushed, flustered, beautiful as ever, with some reasonable explanation. A traffic jam. A lost phone. Maybe a mix-up with the time. Something. Anything that would make me feel like I wasn't sitting here like a damn fool. I glance at my watch. 8:22 p.m. I reserved this table for 7. The other couples around me are leaning in toward each other, soft laughter in their voices, fingers brushing across the tablecloths like lovers in a movie. My table, meanwhile, is the only one with cold steak and a single man chewing resentment. I should leave, but I can't, because I remember what tonight is supposed to be. 3 years ago to the day, I married Brielle. I stood under a sky full of southern light, hands trembling as I vowed to love her, protect her, and grow old by her side. She smiled through tears and said she'd do the same. And we meant it. At least, I thought we did. Tonight, I booked the same restaurant we celebrated our engagement at. I picked up her favorite flowers, lilies, wrapped in soft paper, and left them on the passenger seat, expecting to hand them to her when we met here. I even wore the navy suit she once told me made me look like a senator. I remember she said it with that teasing smile of hers, the one that made me feel 10 feet tall. But now the seat across from me is still empty, and the lilies are dying in the car. I pull out my phone again, the screen glowing back at me like a slap in the face. 3 unread texts, all from me. No response. No call. No update. Just silence. Hey, running late? Are you okay? I'm here. I see the read receipts. She saw them. All of them. And yet, nothing. I shift in my seat and look toward the door again. Still nothing. I've always known Brielle was more social than me. She comes from old Charleston money, horse farms, debutante balls, family ties that stretch back to the Revolution. I'm a software architect with Midwest roots and a small circle of friends who speak fluent sarcasm and code. We met at a Tech&Law networking event. She wore red. I wore nerves. Somehow, we clicked. Somehow, we became us. And somewhere in the middle of building a life, I forgot to watch it fall apart. A soft voice interrupts me. Mr. Royce. I glance up. The waiter, Eli, his name tag says, gives me a kind smile that feels like pity dressed in professionalism. Would you like me to wrap your entree? I nod this time. Yeah, might as well. Of course. He hesitates. And the wine. I look at the half-finished glass in front of me, then at the untouched one across the table. I reach over, pull hers toward me, and drink it in one smooth, quiet swallow. Bring the bottle, I say. Eli nods and disappears. I lean back, letting the sting of the wine coat the ache in my chest. I'm not humiliated yet, but I'm getting there. And worse than that, I'm starting to feel angry. Where is she? What could be so important, so urgent, that it keeps her from even texting me? I think of how distant she's been lately. Longer hours. Missed dinners. The way her phone never left her side anymore. I told myself it was just work. I trusted her. I believed in us. Now, I'm not so sure. The wine doesn't answer. The restaurant is dimming its lights, winding down for the night. I take the wrapped meal Eli returns with, sign the check, and leave a tip so large it feels like I'm paying for my own funeral. Outside, the night is cool and quiet. Charleston's old brick streets echo faintly with footsteps and laughter from people whose lives haven't just cracked open. I unlock my car, toss the takeout on the passenger seat beside the dying lilies, and sit behind the wheel. I don't start the engine. Instead, I stare straight ahead, my jaw clenched tight enough to hurt. Something is wrong, and I'm going to find out what. Hey, if you're still watching, that means you're enjoying the story. I have one small request. I'm trying to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. If you like stories like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to join the journey. It means a lot to me And trust me, even better stories are coming. Now let's continue story. The drive home feels longer than usual. Each red light is a small eternity, each passing car a blur I can't focus on. I keep replaying the same thought in my head like a loop track. Where the hell is she? When I finally pull into the driveway, our house looks as peaceful as ever. Porch light still on. Curtains drawn. No sign of panic or surprise. Just stillness. I push through the front door and flick on the hallway lights. Her heels aren't at the door. Her bag isn't on the bench. And the scent of her favorite vanilla candle isn't burning in the kitchen like it usually is when she's home before me. The house is cold. Empty. I toss the takeout bag onto the kitchen counter, next to the anniversary card I never gave her. Her name is written in black ink, curved letters I traced over 3 times before sealing the envelope this morning. It sits there like a lie I haven't opened yet. I check my phone again, hoping for a missed call or a late excuse. Nothing. But then, a voicemail notification I hadn't seen before. I tap play. Hey, it's me. Her voice. Soft. Breathless. I'm sorry, Colton. Something came up at work. I had to stay late. It's a mess over here. I didn't want to miss dinner. I really didn't. I'll explain everything when I get home. Just don't be mad, okay? The message ends. No, I love you. Just a flat line of uncertainty. My teeth grit. It's not just the message. It's the sound of it. Her voice didn't come from a quiet office. I could hear music in the background. Laughter. Glasses clinking. She wasn't at work. I walk to the living room window, pull the curtain back slightly, and glance at the street. Her car isn't in the driveway. She's still not home. I tap into her home network dashboard on my phone. I may not be the flashy one in this marriage, but tech? Tech is mine. Last front door unlock, 7:10 a.m. Brielle leaving for work. Last garage motion, 7:12 a.m. No return signals since. I feel it now. Not suspicion. Not doubt. Certainty. She didn't come home. The last time I used this feeling, this gut-level pattern recognition, I was helping a private client track a data breach in their billion-dollar company. This time, the breach is in my own life. My phone buzzes again. A new message. Not from her, but from Marcus, my closest friend since college. Marcus. Hey, not trying to stir anything, man. But are you and Bree still at that anniversary dinner spot? I swear I just saw her at Blue Orchid with some guy. Looked cozy. The words don't hit like a slap. They hit like a quiet confirmation of what I already know. I call him immediately. Tell me everything, I say before he even says hello. He does. The black dress. Her hair down. A man sitting across from her, holding her hand, leaning in. It wasn't work. It wasn't a crisis. It was someone else. And I know now, I'm not just dealing with a late night or a misdate. I'm dealing with betrayal. 15 minutes later, I'm parked on the side of the street near Blue Orchid Lounge. They're closed now. The street's mostly empty except for a few cars idling near the curb and a soft yellow glow spilling out from a nearby bakery closing down for the night. And then I see it. A black sedan. 2 silhouettes inside. I kill my headlights and park half a block down. Just close enough to see. Just far enough not to be seen. The car door opens on the passenger side. She steps out. Brielle. Wearing the same black dress she left the house in this morning. Only now, it's not for me. The man, tall, beard, reddish hair, gets out after her. Deacon, I realize. I don't know him personally, but I've heard his name around. One of those smug finance types with a jawline that makes people trust him and a voice made for selling overpriced stocks. He places his hand on the small of her back like he's done it 1,000 times. She doesn't pull away. They walk toward the sidewalk, pausing under the street lamp. I lower my window just enough to hear. I hate sending you home like this, Deacon says. Brielle laughs softly. Not nervously. Not guiltily. Comfortably. I'll see you tomorrow, she whispers. I'll miss you, he murmurs. Then he leans down and kisses her. Not a peck. Not hesitation. A kiss full of belonging. I watch my wife, close her eyes and lean into another man's mouth like she's home. I can't breathe. I don't even realize I've opened my car door until my feet hit the pavement. They hear it. Brielle turns. Her eyes lock on mine. Her face drains white. Colton, she stammers. Deacon steps in front of her like he's her damn shield. Hey, man, don't, I growl. Don't talk to me. Brielle stumbles forward. I can explain. No, I say, my voice dead calm. You really can't. I didn't want it to happen like this. I laugh. One bitter, hollow sound. Yeah? When were you planning to tell me, Brie? After dessert? Before your next lie? Her eyes well with tears. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And now it's done. Deacon starts to speak again. I take one step closer, and he shuts his mouth. Smart move. I turn back to Brielle, whose hands are shaking. I waited for you tonight. I sat at that restaurant like an idiot, hoping you'd show up. You were with him the whole time. I'm sorry, she says, and I almost believe she means it. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't unkiss him. Sorry doesn't undo a single damn thing. I'll come home, she whispers. We'll talk. Please. I stare at her for a long moment, then step back. No, don't come home. She gasps. I want you to go. Right now. With him. Don't call. Don't explain. Just go. Her face collapses. Deacon tries to guide her toward the car. Don't touch her. I snap. He freezes. I'm just trying to help. You've done more than enough. She starts sobbing. But I don't stay to watch. I turn around. Walk back to my car. Get in. The engine roars to life. And as I drive away, I don't look back. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the garage for 3 hours with the engine off, just staring at the steering wheel, trying to figure out how long I've been the last to know in my own marriage. At 5:12 a.m., I opened the family group chat. Her mother had posted a happy anniversary to our perfect couple message earlier that day, complete with a collage of old wedding photos and a caption about true love lasting forever. I scroll past it and reread the comments. Her sister, hope you both have a beautiful night. Her father, Deacon says hi, looking forward to Sunday's brunch. My blood goes cold. Deacon says hi. They knew. They all knew. And none of them told me. Not one. The betrayal wasn't just hers. It was theirs too. Sunday. Brunch at the Waverleys. The kind where crystal glasses clink over hand-squeezed mimosas and linen napkins are folded like origami. I parked half a block away, sat in my car, and watched the house I used to walk into like family. Brielle's parents, Grant and Ellen, were Charleston elite. If Southern manners were currency, they were royalty. And I was always the outsider, the tech guy from Indianapolis who somehow landed their polished, pedigreed daughter. But I thought I'd earned their respect, their trust. Clearly, I overestimated my place in the picture. I sat there with my hands tied on the steering wheel, debating whether to go in and play dumb. Pretend I didn't know. Pretend I hadn't caught Brielle under that streetlight with Deacon. Instead, I walked up to the front door and rang the bell like a guest. When Ellen opened it, her smile faltered for half a second, just long enough to confirm what I needed to know. She knew, but she covered it quickly. Colton, come in, sweetheart. You're just in time. I stepped inside, and everything felt off. The air smelled like cinnamon and fresh biscuits, but the warmth was fake. Like a stage play with the props set too perfectly. Brielle was already there, sitting beside Deacon, at our family table. She didn't look at me. Deacon didn't either. Grant stood and offered his hand. Glad you made it, son. Son. He said it like nothing had changed. I shook his hand. Firm. Cold. Then I walked to the table, pulled out the empty chair at the end, and sat down like a man preparing for war. Conversation started. Weather. Markets. Charity events. No one mentioned the elephant choking the room, until Grant raised a toast. To new beginnings, he said, smiling at Deacon, and to men who know how to take charge. The table laughed. Brielle flushed, but didn't speak. I raised my glass, met Grant's eyes, and said nothing. Just let the silence hang long enough to make someone sweat. Then I drank. And inside, I buried the last of who I used to be. I moved out 2 days later. Didn't tell Brielle. Didn't leave a note. She came home to an empty closet, a stripped dresser, and a severed marriage. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. No fights over vases or shared wine racks. No screaming matches in the living room. I wanted peace. And revenge doesn't work well when it's loud. I left her the house. Let her keep the kitchen knives and curated furniture. Left her with the same bed she'd probably shared with him when I worked late. But I took the things she forgot I had: digital access, shared accounts, passwords, backups, admin-level permissions. She never understood how deep I ran in tech. I wasn't just an architect. I helped build the backbones of 3 major data firms, and I held equity in 2. Silent partnerships. No LinkedIn profile. No Instagram flex. I liked it that way. The world saw a quiet, dependable guy in button-ups. They never saw the man who designed breach-proof firewalls for federal agencies. Brielle certainly didn't. So when I logged into our shared cloud drive and quietly copied every message, every calendar invite, every call log, she had no idea. And when I pulled Deacon's name into our database at Norex Analytics, the company I co-owned in silence, I found something else. He worked for a startup recently acquired by Norex, which made him, by every legal definition, my employee. I sat in my new apartment that night, staring at the glowing screen. My ex-wife's boyfriend, the man her family adored, the man who toasted new beginnings in front of me, he worked under a company I partially controlled. I smiled for the first time in weeks. This wasn't the end. This was the setup. I filed the separation papers under a private attorney, someone who specialized in confidential divorce agreements for high-profile clients. I didn't want drama. I wanted freedom. But before I handed them in, I did something else. I went to the safe in my apartment, opened the black velvet box that held both our wedding bands, mine, scratched and worn, hers, pristine and gleaming with its overpriced diamond. I stared at them side by side for a long time. Then I picked up hers, held it up to the light. I remembered the way she gasped when I proposed, the way her voice cracked when she said yes, how proud she was to wear this ring, flaunt it at parties, show it off like a trophy that meant more than love. It wasn't about the vow, not to her. It was about the appearance, the status. That ring meant something once. Now, it was just a lie cast in gold. I took a photo of it. Then I slid the ring into a padded envelope and addressed it to her office. No note, no explanation, just the ring, and a screenshot of the date and time she was with Deacon under the street lamp. Proof of the moment everything changed. I dropped it in the mail. Let karma do the delivery. You learn a lot about someone when you stop looking at their face and start reading their data. After mailing the ring, I went quiet. Didn't contact Brielle. Didn't confront Deacon. I let the silence stretch long enough for both of them to believe I was licking my wounds somewhere. Humiliated, broken, done. I wasn't broken. I was building. At Norex, I kept my name off most things. I didn't want titles. I wanted leverage. I preferred to stay behind the code, the contracts, the acquisitions. Let the executives sign press releases. I just controlled the pipeline, which is why no one batted an eye when I started pulling internal employee records from Falco Tech, the newly acquired startup where Deacon worked. I ran his full profile through our risk algorithms, background, messaging behavior, spending anomalies. And the flags lit up like a Christmas tree. Unencrypted data transfers after midnight. Personal email contact with 2 competitors. Travel reimbursements that didn't match GPS data. And a credit card trail that ended at hotels he wasn't authorized to visit on business. Sloppy, dangerous, and perfect. I opened a secured folder and started a file, Wells_risk_potential. Then I did what I do best. I disappeared behind a screen and let the system do the digging. While he played boyfriend and smiled for family brunches, I monitored every keystroke. Not because I was jealous, because I needed him cornered. Not fired, not shamed, owned. In Charleston's finance circle, Deacon Wells was loud. He wore confidence like cologne, spoke in half-finished sentences and full-volume arrogance. Everyone thought he was heading for upper management at Falco Tech, maybe even a board seat someday. They didn't know that the person slowing that ascent was me. I made a few quiet calls. Not official, just whispers. A flagged compliance report here. A red tape delay there. HR was suddenly unsure about his promotion. Legal started reviewing his past audits. And every time a decision about him was pushed back, delayed, or reassessed, I sat in my apartment, drinking coffee and smiling at the screen like a man watching a plan unfold. But that wasn't enough. See, revenge isn't just about the target. It's about the witnesses. So I started walking into buildings where I used to send proxies, boardrooms, strategy meetings, division reviews, and I made sure that when I did, I used my full name. Colton Royce, co-investor in the Falco Tech acquisition. Every time I said it, I watched the room shift. People glanced up, looked at each other, whispered, because suddenly, I wasn't the quiet guy with the desk job. I was the man with pen power. And soon enough, Deacon heard the name. He heard it from a project manager during a morning stand-up. He froze. "What did you say his name was?" he asked, voice low. "Colton Royce," the guy repeated. "You know him?" Deacon didn't answer. He just nodded slowly, suddenly pale. The moment he realized I wasn't just Brielle's ex, that's when the real fun began. Brielle called me the next night. I didn't answer. She texted instead. "Brielle, can we talk? I didn't know you worked with Deacon." "Brielle, Colton, please. This is messy. I never wanted things to be like this." I read the messages, saved the timestamps, then deleted them. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I logged into our remaining joint accounts, streaming services, household logins, insurance dashboards. One by one, I changed the passwords, removed her access, updated addresses. Every trace of our shared life? Gone. I even had her car removed from our insurance policy. I left her an email, short and cold. All remaining shared accounts have been closed or reassigned. Future communication will be through legal channels only. Do not contact me again unless it pertains to the divorce. The next morning, I changed the access codes to the backup drive at Norex, the one she didn't know existed. Inside was everything: screenshots, security logs, footage, emails, a quiet arsenal, and a single video from our anniversary night. Me, sitting alone at a table with 2 full glasses of wine. Her chair empty. I kept it, not because I needed the memory, but because one day, if she ever claimed she had regrets, or that it wasn't like that, I'd show her that video and say, "This is exactly what it was like." By Friday morning, the folder labeled Wells_risk_potential was nearly a novella. IP logs, flagged messages, employee complaints I'd never seen reported. And the cherry on top, an expense report listing a strategic offsite dinner for 2 at the same restaurant where Marcus saw Brielle that night. I didn't need to prove he was cheating. I needed to prove he was sloppy, untrustworthy, a liability to the company's brand and books. And I was almost there. The final piece came from a forwarded email buried in our system. Deacon had sent a private document to his personal email account. A spreadsheet. Projections. With data from a third-party partner he wasn't authorized to access. That was the break. Accessing company IP externally? Against policy. Sending client data to personal storage? Illegal. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough. I wrapped the evidence into a formal report, signed it as a security audit lead, and forwarded it to the ethics review team under our chief compliance officer. No one batted an eye. They just saw a red-flagged employee with a long list of internal violations and a risk rating so high he lit up the dashboard. By the time Deacon walked into his Monday all-hands, 3 department heads were already reviewing how deep his access ran. He still smiled when he spoke, still clapped when the CEO gave his speech. But I saw the shift. People stopped making eye contact. He left the meeting with no follow-ups, no casual hallway invites. And when he opened his company laptop that afternoon, he triggered a flag I planted myself, an automatic alert that sent me a ping the moment he used an unauthorized file. He just crossed the final line, and I hadn't even touched him yet. I didn't come for him in public. I let the silence rot him from the inside out. Each day that passed, Deacon got colder glances, tighter meetings, HR asking for clarifications, legal sending just confirming emails with bolded policy numbers. And all the while, I stayed back, quiet, invisible, except for once. I made sure to attend the quarterly Interdivision mixer. Deacon was there, his smile strained, drink untouched. I waited until he was across the room, surrounded by mid-levels trying not to get dragged into drama. Then I walked in. New suit, calm posture. My name was on the event list this time. No more ghost. He turned as I crossed the room, eyes wide. He said nothing, just watched me. I nodded once. Cool. Professional. Then walked right past him. I could feel his panic trailing behind me like heat from a dying fire. Later that night, I got a message from a junior analyst I barely knew. Is it true you co-own the firm Deacon works under now? Also, I think he's sweating through his shirt at his desk. I didn't reply, but I knew exactly what would happen next. Monday, an anonymous email hit the inboxes of 4 VPs. Subject line: Employee risk profile, critical review needed, no attachments. No notes, just a secure internal link. It led to one page. A profile of Deacon Wells. Everything redacted except 5 flagged compliance issues, 3 policy violations under current audit, 2 third-party contact risks, 1 line in bold. Currently under internal review. Monitor all escalations. That's all it took. The office doesn't respond to drama. It responds to risk. And Deacon had officially become one. By noon, his name was removed from 2 internal dashboards. By 3 p.m., his security keycard access was limited to his floor. By 5, he was called into a closed-door meeting with HR, legal, and a compliance officer. I wasn't in that room. Didn't need to be. I already knew what they'd ask, and I knew exactly how little he'd have to say. Tuesday morning, I walked into the high-rise headquarters of Norex Analytics like I owned the place. Because I did. At least 42% of it. But you wouldn't know that from the way people looked at me. They weren't used to seeing me in person. Most execs had only dealt with me through secured emails or brief calls. To them, I was just the elusive investor who stayed out of the limelight and approved acquisition moves from behind encrypted walls. Until now, I strode into the executive floor, nodded to the receptionist, and headed for the boardroom. Nobody stopped me. We weren't expecting you in Charleston this week. I like to be unexpected, I said simply, setting my bag on the table and pulling out my iPad. Thought I'd sit in on today's departmental review. The meeting was already underway. Deacon's division was third on the agenda. I sat through the first 2 quietly, offering the occasional insight, watching the room settle into a rhythm. Then it was his turn. He entered 5 minutes late, flushed, buttoning his cuff as if he'd just wrestled with his reflection. When his eyes landed on me, his entire posture changed. Panic, barely concealed behind a professional smile. Mr. Royce, he said with a nod. I gave him a look like I'd just remembered who he was. Deacon, isn't it? Yes, sir. Good to finally put a face to the audit file. The room went still. No one spoke. No one breathed. He opened his mouth, tried to speak, then pivoted. We're still preparing the final Q3 report, but save it, I said calmly. This isn't that meeting. I stood up, closed the iPad, and straightened my blazer. I just needed to make sure everyone here understood something. The room waited. I don't like messes, I said. And right now, we've got one. I looked Deacon in the eye. Cold. Steady. He dropped his gaze. And for the first time, he realized this wasn't about a woman anymore. This was about power. 2 days later, Deacon received an internal memo. Subject: temporary leave pending compliance review. It was formal, polite, and utterly damning. He was told to vacate his desk, surrender his company phone, and attend a mandatory exit interview the following morning. I watched it happen from the 10th floor balcony, through tinted glass, sipping coffee like it was any other Thursday. He walked out of the building with his head down, brown box in hand, the kind you only carry once in your career. Security stood at a polite distance, not escorting, but close enough to imply, we're watching. Later that night, I received a message from a board member. Appreciate the early flag on Wells. Looks like we dodged a major issue. Good instincts. I replied with 2 words, not instincts. Experience. Then I deleted the message and shut the screen. Across town, I imagined Deacon sitting in his apartment, jobless, rattled, confused, wondering what went wrong. Brielle would try to console him, maybe even talk about rebuilding. Let her. The fall was only just beginning. The next morning, I walked into a downtown cafe near the office. It wasn't fancy. No valet. Just decent espresso and quiet tables. I took the corner seat, ordered black coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up the latest internal updates. That's when the bell above the door jingled. Deacon. He hadn't seen me yet. He walked to the counter, ordered something too complicated, and waited near the pickup shelf with a restless shuffle. the look of a man who'd lost control of his narrative. I waited until he turned, until our eyes met. He froze. I raised my cup in a small toast. Morning. He hesitated, then approached. You enjoying this? He asked, voice tight. No, I replied, but I'm not losing sleep over it. You set me up. No, I said calmly. You set yourself up. I just kept the receipts. His jaw tensed. You think a discrepancy in reporting, a possible policy breach, and some phrases like waiting for legal resolution were enough to ensure no one invited him to lunch or copied him on emails anymore. But outside the office, he was still clinging to relevance. Brielle was hosting a private fundraiser event at a rooftop bar near King Street. One of those cocktail dress, handshake-heavy affairs where appearances mattered more than results. Her family was known in that circle. I'd been invited every year for the last 3. This time, I showed up uninvited. When I walked in, heads turned. I wasn't flashy. Charcoal blazer, clean lines, nothing loud. Just present. Visible. That's all it took. Brielle was mid-conversation with 2 real estate agents and a young politician when she saw me. Her glass trembled slightly in her hand. Colton, she said, stepping away from them. I nodded. You look stressed. She pulled me aside, voice low. What are you doing here? I took a slow sip of my drink. I had an open evening. Thought I'd see how the other half is surviving. She glanced over her shoulder. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm not making anything, I said calmly. You did. When you lied. When you let them all lie with you. Her expression hardened. This wasn't supposed to explode. I laughed softly. You brought gasoline to a house made of paper. And now you're shocked the wind caught fire. Before she could respond, someone called her name across the terrace. She turned, forced a smile, then turned back to me. You already took his job. What more do you want? I leaned in slightly. I want the truth to cost everyone who tried to profit from the lie. Then I walked away. And for the first time, I left her standing there, alone in a room full of people she could no longer trust. Monday morning brought a ripple through Norex. Someone from the legal team requested clarification on 2 old financial reports. Nothing huge, just protocol. But I knew exactly what had triggered it. A confidential document Brielle had submitted to the acquisition committee 6 months ago, back when she was still pretending to care about our marriage, while quietly advising Falcotech behind closed doors. She'd signed off on a clause involving company partner disclosures. Problem was, she hadn't disclosed Deacon. Technically, she should have. They were already romantically involved during merger talks, which meant she had a conflict of interest when she advised the committee to push forward with the deal. Legally, it was a gray area. Morally, it was poison. So I dropped an anonymous tip to our ethics compliance officer with a timestamped screenshot of her advising notes and a photo of her and Deacon at that rooftop bar, dated a week earlier. Let them connect the dots. By Tuesday, a formal inquiry had landed in her inbox. No one knew it came from me. But I'd already scheduled a coffee with one of the partners at the law firm she worked for. Just casual. Just enough to start the whispers. If she failed to disclose during merger advisory, might be grounds for conflict. Could jeopardize the recommendation chain. The truth? I didn't care about the technicalities. I cared that she felt the same slow, cold burn I had. From the inside out. Deacon called me that night. Blocked number. I picked up anyway. Colton, he said, voice low, like someone calling from a trench. Deacon, you need to stop. I'm not doing anything, I said. You keep stepping on landmines that were already there. He didn't laugh. She's unraveling. So unravel with her. There was silence on the line. Then he exhaled. I don't think she knew how far this would go. I leaned back in my chair. No, I think she did. I just don't think she thought anyone would hold her accountable. Are you really going to burn her down over this? I didn't answer that. Not directly. Instead, I asked, you still have her second phone? He hesitated. Yeah. Check the texts. Search for my name. Then ask yourself if she ever planned to stay with you. More silence. Then a soft click as the line went dead. That was the moment I knew. The cracks between them had begun, and I hadn't even touched them. All I'd done was show them the truth. It was time to test her loyalty, not just to him, but to the illusion she'd built. I sent Brielle a single email from a burner address. No greeting. No sign-off. Just one line. HR's asking questions. Be careful what you put in writing. I knew she'd panic. The email was encrypted, untraceable, but I left just enough of a digital scent to make her paranoid. And sure enough, by noon the next day, a new series of messages appeared in the compliance logs, from her work account to Deacon's personal Gmail. They weren't clever. They were desperate. Delete everything. Don't respond to HR until I speak to counsel. If they connect the relationship to the recommendation, we're both exposed. Exactly what I needed. Brielle had just created evidence of intent to conceal, and she did it from a corporate device. The trap was set. I just had to wait. 2 days later, the compliance team flagged the thread. A quiet internal alert was triggered. Legal started preparing a preliminary inquiry. And somewhere between Thursday night and Friday morning, someone on Brielle's firm's senior team requested a private call with her. That call, I later heard, lasted 6 minutes. She left the office without speaking to anyone. And by Monday morning, her name was quietly removed from the partner track list. She hadn't just lost her promotion. She'd lost their trust. Exactly as I planned. Saturday night. Downtown Charleston. I knew Brielle, and Deacon would try to play normal. Public appearances meant everything to her. She needed the illusion of control, of still being the one with the upper hand. So I gave them the perfect opportunity. A private tasting dinner at a 5-star rooftop restaurant. I booked the table next to theirs. Didn't say a word when they walked in. Brielle saw me first. Her hand clenched around her clutch so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Deacon froze half a step behind her. He didn't speak. I kept my back turned until the hostess seated them. Then I leaned back just enough for her to hear. Try the Pinot. It pairs well with public shame. She flinched. The waiter approached my table seconds later, visibly shaken, and said, "Would you like to move tables, sir?" I smiled politely. "No, I'm fine here. Unless they want to move." They didn't. They sat in silence for the first 15 minutes. Then they ordered, but neither ate. Brielle was picking at her food like it was poison. Deacon just stared into his drink like it had answers. When I stood to leave, I walked past their table slowly, paused just long enough to drop a folded napkin between their plates. Brielle unfolded it. Inside, a printed photo of her smiling at the rooftop event, next to a time-stamped copy of the email she sent Deacon telling him to delete everything. Her face drained. "You've made your choices," I said. "Now live with them." Then I walked away. Dinner was over. So was denial. By the time the next board review came around, Deacon's name wasn't even on the candidate list for promotion, not even as a placeholder. That wasn't surprising. What was surprising was how many department heads now used his name as a cautionary tale. He deaconed that project. That pitch feels like a Wells plan, risky and unvetted. His name had become shorthand for failure. And just to ice the cake, I submitted a revised staff restructuring proposal and included his position in the reallocation phase. I didn't fire him. I made him redundant. 2 weeks later, he was handed a transition package. Not a termination. Not a scandal. Just a quiet exit, packaged clean. He took it. But before he left, he made one last attempt to salvage something. He emailed me. "You win. I'm gone. But just so you know, she's not who you think she is. She played us both. Hope you burn her better than she burned me." I didn't respond. Not because he was wrong, but because he was finally seeing the truth I had already accepted months ago. And the beauty of it? I didn't have to destroy them. They destroyed each other. I just opened the curtains and let the light in. The red folder arrived on my desk anonymously. No name. No return label. Just a matte red envelope with my name handwritten in black ink. Inside, 32 pages. Photocopies. Emails. Legal drafts. Contract excerpts. And one picture. A contract bearing 2 signatures. Brielle M. Royce and Martindale, lead acquisition counsel at a shelf firm I knew was linked to 2 corporate takedowns last year. She'd been in talks 6 months before the Falcotech deal, not to advise it, but to profit from it. Not ethically. Not legally. She had taken a silent financial interest in Deacon's company before the acquisition ever happened. Through backdoor partners. Hidden kickbacks. Shell companies she thought couldn't be traced. But they could. And now I held the proof. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was fraud. Real. Felony level. Documented. The implications hit me like a wall. If I exposed this, it wouldn't just end her career, it could land her in prison. I stared at the photo at the bottom of the folder. It was her, seated across from Martindale at a private marina club. Laughing. Shaking hands. She had lied to me. To her firm. To the entire merger committee. All for profit. And somewhere in my gut, a colder truth settled. She didn't just cheat on me emotionally. She used me professionally. I leaned back in my chair. Everything had changed. Now it wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. Brielle must have felt it. That shift. That weight in the air. Because the next time we crossed paths, accidentally, at a wine tasting of all places, she looked like someone watching shadows crawl up the walls. She wore a tailored ivory coat, sunglasses too large for the cloudy day, and a smile with chipped corners. "Colton," she said softly. "Brielle." We stood under the event canopy, people buzzing around us, sipping wine neither of us tasted. She looked thinner, paler. Like sleep had started to avoid her, too. "I heard Deacon's gone," she said. "He left." Her eyes scanned my face. "You're not done, are you? Were you?" I asked, voice calm. "When you signed with Dale? When you filed for that silent partnership?" Her expression faltered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Good," I replied. "Say that again when the ethics board calls." She blinked. "You wouldn't. You're not the only one who keeps records," I said, then paused. "But I don't delete mine." She said nothing. I turned to leave, then glanced back. "You ever think about what this could have been?" Her voice cracked. "Every day." That was the only honest thing she said. And the saddest part? I believed her. But belief doesn't erase what happened. And I had a red folder full of reasons not to let it slide. Friday, 4:45 p.m., just before the weekend. The time when most people are watching the clock, thinking about dinner, not expecting the floor beneath them to disappear. That's when the formal letter was delivered. To Brielle's firm. Subject line: Conflict of interest review and undisclosed financial ties. Formal complaint file that came with exhibits. Receipts. Paper trails. The red folder, digitized and indexed, sent directly to the managing partners in the Internal Ethics Council. She received the news at her desk. From what I heard later, she sat there frozen for almost 10 minutes, then quietly stood up, packed her things, and walked out without saying a word. No big scene. No exit speech. Just silence. On Monday, her name was gone from the website. On Tuesday, I got an email from her father. "You made your point. I hope it was worth it." I didn't reply, because it wasn't about making a point anymore. It was about making sure no one like her ever did this again without paying the price. She built her life on lies, and all I did was shine a light. For the first time in weeks, I had nothing left to do. No emails to send. No legal traps to set. No more silence to weaponize. Brielle was out. Deacon was gone. Her family? Distant, quiet, embarrassed. I'd won, and I hated how empty it felt. There were no cheers. No parade. No final scene where I walk off into the sunset. Just a quiet apartment, 2 cups of black coffee in the morning, and an inbox full of nothing. I thought I'd feel vindicated, empowered, maybe even whole again. Instead, all I felt was done. Not healed. Not proud. Just done. I started going to bed earlier. Cooking for one. Running 3 miles every morning. I told myself it was progress, but deep down, I knew it was just survival with better branding. Then came the letter. No name. Just a return address in Nashville. Inside was a handwritten note. "You don't know me, but I know exactly what she did. Because she did it to me too." Below the message was a business card. Elora Bennett, Private Security Consultant. Bennett and Wells, 2018 to 2019. The back of the card was marked with one line. "If you want the full truth, meet me in person." I stared at the card for a long time. Then I booked a flight to Nashville. Because apparently, Brielle wasn't just my nightmare. She was someone else's, too. Elora Bennett looked like someone who'd walked through hell in heels and didn't lose a step doing it. She met me in a downtown Nashville cafe. Leather jacket. Minimal makeup. A quiet fire in her eyes that told me she wasn't bluffing. She slid a folder across the table before even saying hello. I read about what you did to Deacon. Impressive. Cold. I didn't answer. She nodded at the folder. That's from 2019. Brielle was supposed to be my partner. Business. Security consulting. We were building something. I opened the folder. Credit fraud. Signature forgeries. Offshore account activity. A confidential client list copied and sold to a third party. You're saying she betrayed you too? I asked. Alora's jaw flexed. She didn't just betray me. She stole everything. And she used my name on the last deal before disappearing. Why come forward now? I asked. Because I heard what you did to Deacon and figured maybe, just maybe, you'd be the one guy cold enough to finish what I couldn't. I leaned back, staring at the trail of crimes Brielle left in her wake. You said client list, I murmured. Who did she sell it to? Alora's eyes met mine. She didn't sell it to a client, she said. She sold it to Deacon. Everything stopped. And just like that, the betrayal rewrote itself. The realization hit like a second betrayal, sharper, crueler. Brielle hadn't fallen for Deacon during our marriage. She targeted him. She'd known him before we ever met. He wasn't a fling. He was a partner, a co-conspirator. And our marriage? That white dress, those vows, the 3-year life we built? It was just camouflage. You think she ever really loved you? Alora asked, voice low. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She kept going. They were already laundering money through 2 dummy corps by the time you married her. She needed access to acquisition channels. You had it. I felt sick. The betrayal wasn't personal, it was professional. I wasn't just the heartbroken husband. I was the mark. My revenge? It hadn't just been justified. It had been too kind. Alora slid one last document toward me. Here's a bank account tied to both of them. Cayman shell. Still active. What's in it? I asked. Last I checked? About 600,000. Dirty. Untouched. But legally traceable with the right push. I looked at her. You want me to destroy her? I want you to finish what you started, she replied. Before someone else gets played. I stared down at the account numbers. The rules had changed. And this time, I wasn't just after karma. I was after everything. Back in Charleston, things looked the same from the outside. Same expensive boutiques. Same polished sidewalks. Same lies. But now I knew what I was really standing in the middle of, a network built by Brielle and Deacon, laced with shell corporations, stolen data, and forged partnerships disguised as romance. And I wasn't going to burn it down. I was going to peel it apart, layer by layer. I started with the bank account Alora gave me, ran the routing through Norex's internal tracking protocol. We weren't a bank, but we owned one of the data licensing firms that powered financial behavior analysis for 3 regional banks. It took 2 hours to confirm the shell company's origin. Larkspur Ventures LLC. Listed owner, Ariel Monson. A name I recognized, Brielle's college roommate, the one she lost touch with after graduation. Only. I found Ariel. She wasn't living lavish. She was living paycheck to paycheck in Phoenix, Arizona, teaching high school math and renting a 1-bedroom apartment. I called her. She nearly cried. You're the 3rd person to ask me about that company, she said. But I swear to God, I've never even heard of it. Brielle asked me to sign some startup forms years ago, said it was a tax thing. I trusted her. Of course she did. Everyone had. Until now. I thanked her and hung up. Then I added identity theft to Brielle's growing file. She'd hidden it all so well. But the truth? It's heavier than any lie. Eventually, it cracks through. It happened on a Wednesday morning. Brielle was at her new office, a consulting firm she'd started under her own name, branding herself as a crisis management expert. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so psychotic. She walked in at 8:34 a.m. By 9:15, the doors were sealed. IRS agents. 2 federal compliance officers. 1 arrest warrant. They walked her out in handcuffs. Hair done. Makeup perfect. Face pale. The charges were extensive. Wire fraud, identity theft, corporate misrepresentation, conspiracy to commit digital laundering. And the bank account? Frozen. $612,000 seized. Local news picked it up within the hour. Charleston socialite Brielle Royce arrested in high-level financial scandal tied to acquisition fraud. They used her old engagement photo in the article, the one where she's smiling next to me in front of the fountain, diamond ring front and center. I stared at the headline for a long time. Then I called Elora. "It started," I said. On the other end, she exhaled. "And it won't stop now." The moment the arrest hit the wire, Deacon vanished. No press statement. No legal defense. No angry denial. Just gone. He didn't contact Brielle. He didn't show up to any meetings. He cleaned out his bank accounts and disappeared from Charleston like a ghost with something to hide. But I was already a step ahead. I had traced his exit plan through one of the flagged travel cards he used at Falcotech, a backup route meant for relocation of execs in high-pressure transitions. The last charge was in Miami. One-way ticket. Private car rental. Cash withdrawal. That night, I received an encrypted email from an anonymous tip server. He's using the name Michael Cray. Hasn't left the country yet. No signature. But I knew who sent it. Elora. I booked a flight the same night. Not because I wanted to chase him, but because unfinished business festers. And I had no intention of letting Deacon rewrite the ending to a story he helped start. Miami. Late afternoon. I spotted him before he saw me, standing at a quiet marina on the edge of Biscayne Bay, sunglasses on, phone in hand, pacing like someone waiting for a boat that might never come. The Florida heat made everything feel slower, stickier, more vulnerable. He looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had just grown past what he used to intimidate me with. I didn't call out. I walked straight up behind him, boots crunching against the dock until he turned. When he saw me, his expression cracked. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "You're like a damn ghost." "No," I said. "I'm the ending." He stepped back, tension flooding his shoulders. "What do you want?" "You already ruined her." I shook my head. "She ruined herself. You helped." He scoffed. "You think I planned all this? You think I'm the mastermind?" "You were the knife," I said. "Doesn't matter who sharpened it." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I'm done. I've got nothing left." I took the buyout. I walked away. "Let it go." I pulled a document from my pocket, a signed affidavit from a former associate, one that proved Deacon knew about the offshore laundering months before Brielle's arrest. I held it up. "You want me to let it go?" His eyes went wide. "Then you cooperate." Full statement. Court hearing. Everything. "And if I don't?" "Then you're next." He didn't answer. Didn't need to. He lowered his eyes. Nodded once. And just like that, the man who once sat across from my wife like he owned the world surrendered. The courthouse wasn't dramatic. No flashing cameras. No scandal-fueled mobs. Just wood-paneled walls, high ceilings, and the low hum of legal proceedings grinding forward. Brielle sat at the defense table in a navy dress, hair pulled back, flanked by two attorneys who looked like they hadn't slept in days. She didn't look at me when I entered, but I felt her glance. Saw the flicker of recognition. Deacon was already on the stand. He looked sick, sweaty, deflated, but he told the truth. He confirmed everything. The shell accounts, the premeditated fraud, the manipulation of merger documentation, the use of Ariel's identity to create a clean front. He didn't defend himself. He indicted her. By the time it was my turn to testify, the courtroom had already shifted. No longer husband versus wife. Now it was victim versus architects. I took the stand. Voice steady. Tone calm. I didn't embellish. I didn't get emotional. I told the truth. How she used my company's acquisition as leverage. How she exploited our marriage for professional gain. How every dinner, every anniversary, every kiss had been a curtain pulled over a stage built on corruption. When I stepped down, Brielle still hadn't looked at me. Not once. And that hurt more than anything else. Because in the end, even as it all burned, she still couldn't face the fire she lit. It took 72 hours for the internet to catch up. The local paper ran a column titled, "From Power Couple to Criminal Courtroom. The Fall of Brielle Royce." The article went viral. The photo they used? Our wedding day. Her hand wrapped around mine. Eyes glowing. Veil soft in the sunlight. The headline sat like a shadow over it. I didn't respond to requests for interviews. Didn't post any statements. Didn't gloat. Because I didn't need to. Justice had a rhythm now, and it was loud enough for everyone to hear. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a torn photo. Half of our wedding picture. Just her side. And one line, scribbled in familiar handwriting. I never deserved you. It wasn't an apology. It was an ending. And for the first time in months, I felt it. Not revenge. Not anger. Just release. A week after the trial closed, I got a voicemail. Not from Brielle. From her mother. Her voice was tired. Slowed. Like someone dragging every word uphill. Colton. I don't expect a reply. I just want to say I'm sorry. For not seeing it. For how we treated you. You didn't deserve any of this. You were a better son than we ever gave you credit for. I let the message play twice. Then deleted it. Some things didn't need to be held on to. Forgiveness wasn't a door I needed to open. Not now. Maybe not ever. But I'd made my point. Not through shouting. Not through scandal. But through undeniable truth. Brielle's father stepped down from the Charleston Chamber of Business the following week. Too much press. Too many headlines tying their name to the downfall of the woman they once paraded around as the perfect daughter. The public didn't need to cancel them. They canceled themselves. Sometimes karma doesn't come with flames or sirens. Sometimes it just sends a letter with your own last name on it, and silence to read it by. I spent Saturday going through old boxes, the ones I hadn't touched since moving out. Wedding albums, letters, dated concert tickets, a dried corsage from her sister's engagement party. I laid everything out on the living room floor. A full timeline of memories, some real, most staged. And then I picked the ones I knew I could never look at again, and took them out to the fire pit. It wasn't a big moment. No tears. No grand music swelling in the background. Just one man. One match. The flame was soft at first. Then greedy. One by one, the lies turned to ash. The veil. The anniversary card. Her handwritten notes that said forever in cursive. Forever turned out to mean until exposed. When it was done, I sat on the porch, a beer in hand, smoke rising into the twilight. It wasn't closure, but it was clearing. A ritual. The start of space for something new. I moved to Denver the next month. Not because I was running. Because I was rebuilding. Clean air. Mountain skyline. A city that didn't whisper when I walked into a restaurant. I kept it low-key. Rented a 2-bedroom condo just outside Capitol Hill. No one here knew my name. No one cared about my past. It felt human. Simple. The way life should have felt before all the deception and strategy and courtroom echoes. I walked into a new office space, nothing flashy. Just desks, clean light, and the smell of coffee and ambition. The startup I launched there focused on secure digital forensics. The kind that made sure no one else would get blindsided the way I had. Justice built into code. Protection as a business model. I didn't need to win anymore. I just wanted to protect. Maybe that's what survival really is. Not revenge. Not proving a point. But turning your pain into something no one can steal from you again. It started with one email. Subject line. Thank you for telling my story without knowing me. Then another. And another. Within a week, I'd received dozens of messages. Some from strangers. Some from ex-employees at Falcotech. Some from men and women whose spouses had done the same thing Brielle did to me, just quieter, without the headlines. They thanked me not for revenge, but for the silence I shattered. I thought I was crazy until I read what you said in court. You made me feel seen. Your story gave me permission to leave. I didn't respond to all of them, but I read every word. Somewhere between grief and justice, I had stumbled into something unexpected, a voice. I wasn't trying to be anyone's hero, but I had become something else, proof that you can lose everything and still stand taller after. That you can burn and not disappear in the smoke. I wasn't looking to adopt, but that morning, I passed the shelter on my walk, and something made me stop. Maybe it was the stillness inside me. Maybe it was time. She was curled up in the last kennel, a black lab mix with a torn ear, cautious eyes, and a name tag that said Rosie. But she didn't feel like a Rosie. She felt like August. Because that's the month I truly woke up. That's the month my life reset. I signed the papers that day. She didn't bark or jump or do anything dramatic. She just walked beside me, calm, quiet, like she already knew we both needed space, not noise. That night, we sat on the small balcony of my condo, her head on my foot, my hand resting gently on her back. No music, No distractions. Just the Denver skyline glowing in the distance and the feeling, for the first time, that I wasn't waiting for the next collapse. I was here. Alora flew in from Nashville one Saturday. We met at a small brunch cafe near Cheeseman Park. No headlines. No hidden files. No war talk. Just two people who had survived the same storm. I almost didn't come, she said as we sat down. Why? Because I was afraid if we didn't have a war to fight, we'd have nothing to say. I smirked. Turns out, we do. We didn't talk about Brielle. We talked about music, books, her niece, my dog. She laughed more than I'd seen before. Softer now, lighter. At one point she looked at me and said, "You seem free." "I feel it," I said honestly. She took a bite of her toast, then added, "You know, we made a good team." I nodded. Only when we weren't pretending. She raised her glass. To never pretending again. I clinked mine to hers. And as we ate under a sky that finally felt open, I realized something. Healing doesn't announce itself. It just sits down beside you and stays. It came in the form of a letter. Handwritten. Blue ink. Slight smudge on the bottom right corner like whoever wrote it had cried over it. Or nearly did. The return address was a correctional facility. Brielle. Colton, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know, it wasn't always a lie. The rest of it was a confession. Not of crime, the courts already had that, but of guilt, of shame, of the quiet moments she still replayed. Our road trip to Asheville, our first apartment, the time I held her hand through her mother's surgery. I don't blame you for what you did. If anything, you showed me who I really was. It wasn't a letter asking for sympathy. It was one written by someone who had finally realized they were no longer the main character in the story they used to script. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Sometimes closure doesn't come from a courtroom or a confession. Sometimes it comes when you read the apology and don't feel anger anymore. Just distance. Just peace. A week later, I got an unexpected message through the digital consulting firm's main line. From someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, Marcus. My old friend. The one who first saw Brielle at that rooftop lounge with Deacon. The one who sent me that message on the night everything began to unravel. His voice over the phone was hesitant. Humble. "Man, I've been meaning to call you for a long time." I didn't know what to say after all that happened. "You already said what mattered," I replied. "You told me the truth." He was quiet for a beat. Then, "You good?" It was the simplest question, but it hit deeper than any I'd been asked in months. I looked around. August was napping by the balcony. Coffee was warm. Emails were light. My chest wasn't tight. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am. You ever coming back to Charleston?" "Not to stay." "Good," he said. "Some ghosts deserve to be left behind." We laughed. And just like that, a friendship that had been scarred by silence began stitching itself back together. The startup had gained traction. Quietly. No flashy pitch decks. No influencer endorsements. Just results. We'd helped 3 companies expose internal fraud rings. One of them was owned by a man who shook my hand with such force I almost believed in humanity again. One day, an investor group scheduled a pitch meeting. I walked in expecting the usual sharks in suits. What I didn't expect was the final slide of their presentation. It featured me. Not my face. Just my name. And a headline beneath it, Colton Royce, the man who took down his own marriage, and a corporate web along with it. The room fell silent. One of the senior partners spoke. "We don't want to partner with you despite that story. We want to partner with you because of it." For a moment, I froze. I'd built this whole new world trying to outrun that narrative, trying to bury the past beneath purpose. But maybe it wasn't something I had to bury anymore. Maybe it was the blueprint. I nodded. "Let's talk." They asked me to speak on a podcast. A big one. National audience. Host known for deep conversations with public figures who've lived through hell and come out smarter. I said no 3 times before I finally said yes. Not because I needed attention, but because I was ready to stop running from the version of me that had been humiliated, broken, betrayed, and rebuilt. We recorded in a small Denver studio, 2 microphones, a quiet hum of soundproofed walls, and a host who didn't pull punches. "Your story," she said during the intro, "sounds like fiction. Marriage, Infidelity, corporate sabotage, federal court, media fallout. What made you decide to finally speak? I didn't pause. Because I'm not ashamed anymore. That silence that followed? That was healing. We talked for an hour. Not about Brielle. Not about Deacon. About accountability. Identity. What it means to lose everything and find yourself standing in the rubble with your back straighter than before. She asked what I would tell my past self if I could go back to the night I sat alone at that anniversary dinner table. I took a breath. I'd tell him this isn't the end. That pain isn't permanent. That when someone tears your life apart, it's not always to destroy you. Sometimes, it's to show you what was never real in the first place. When the episode aired, the response was overwhelming. I didn't go viral. I went visible to the people who needed that voice. And I knew right then, my story wasn't just mine anymore. It started slow. Emails, comments, messages. People who listened to the interview during their commute. In bed, on their lunch breaks. You said what I've never been able to say out loud. Thank you for being honest without sounding bitter. I walked away from someone toxic because of that episode. And the one that stuck with me the most, I didn't know men could speak like that. You gave me permission to heal. I didn't respond to that one. I just sat with it. Let it echo. The firm grew after that. But not in the loud, flashy way startups usually do. It grew because people trusted the person behind it. Not just for his tech, but for his truth. And when I walked into team meetings now, I didn't see employees. I saw people who believed in something built from ashes. There was no applause. Just nods, smiles, and a silence that felt like respect. It's funny how peace sneaks up on you. Not with fireworks. With routine. I started my mornings with August. A slow walk through the edge of Cheeseman Park. She always stopped under the same tree. I still don't know why. Then coffee. Light breakfast. A playlist I built called Reclaimed. No sad songs. Just ones that reminded me I was still here. And in the afternoons, I worked from a small cafe downtown. Always the same table. By the window. I watched the city move fast, frantic, full of stories I'd never know. And I felt calm knowing mine no longer controlled me. I'd become the kind of man I never thought I could be when I was sitting in a dark driveway watching my wife kiss someone else. Not a shadow. Not a victim. Not even a survivor. Just a man. Present. Rooted. Whole. And every time I saw my reflection in that cafe window, it reminded me, I didn't just win. I rebuilt. The final headline didn't even make the front page. Just a small article, buried deep in the legal section of a mid-tier business outlet. Royce parole denied. Conviction holds. No fanfare. No courtroom sketch. No interviews. Just 4 sentences confirming the obvious. Brielle wasn't getting out anytime soon. She'd appealed, of course she had. Claimed remorse. Claimed emotional distress. Claimed it had all spiraled beyond her control. But the courts saw through it. Too many trails. Too many victims. Too much intent. I sat at my kitchen counter, reading the article on my tablet, August curled up on the rug near my feet. Outside, Denver snow had just started to fall. Quiet. Clean. I stared at her name on the screen one last time. Then I powered it off. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just whispered to myself, like a closing prayer. She's gone. Not just from the courtroom. From my life. From my mind. From the parts of me that once built futures with her shadow stitched into every corner. Gone. And this time. For good. I kept it longer than I expected. Tucked away in a small box. Not because I was sentimental. Because I wasn't ready. That ring, the one I slipped onto her finger 3 years ago under an oak tree wrapped in lights. It wasn't just jewelry. It was the last physical thing tying me to a life that wasn't real. But the time had come. I drove to South Platte River just after sunrise. The sky was soft. Orange and pink streaks across a city that hadn't woken up yet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like time has paused just for you. I stood by the bank. Took the ring out. It felt smaller now. Or maybe my hand had just grown. I didn't say anything dramatic. Didn't cry. Didn't replay old memories like a movie reel. I just opened my palm and let it drop. The splash was quiet. Gentle. The water didn't care what it meant. It just took it. Washed it downstream. Gone. No fireworks. No final words. Just release. Pure. Simple. Real. Chapter 49. The Quiet Man Rebuilt. I don't think healing has a finish line. There's no bell, no ribbon, no parade at the end. It's slower than people expect. Quieter. Sometimes you only realize it happened when you look up one day and don't feel like something's chasing you anymore. That was me. These days, I still kept things simple. Coffee, work, dog walks, emails from grateful strangers, occasional dinner with Elora, who still made sarcastic comments over dessert and called August the better Royce. I didn't date. Not yet. Not because I was afraid. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone else to complete me. I was whole. Scarred? Yes. Changed? Absolutely. But whole. Some nights, I'd sit on my balcony, August curled beside me, city lights flickering in the distance, and I'd ask myself, if I could go back, would I stop it all from happening? And every single time, the answer came quiet, but firm. No. Because without the fire, I'd never have seen what I was made of. Without the betrayal, I'd never have built something real. Without losing her, I'd have never found me. There's a photo on my bookshelf. It's not of her. It's of me. Standing at the trailhead of Mount Falcon, arms crossed, wind in my jacket, August at my side, head tilted, tongue out, like she knows something I don't. My friend Marcus took it, said I looked settled. I didn't understand what he meant until now. Because for the first time, I'm not waiting for karma to do its job. I'm not chasing justice. I'm not watching the door, expecting ghosts. I'm living. Fully. Not in the past. Not in the damage. Just in the now. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't rebuild your life all at once. You do it in pieces. A ring dropped in a river. A truth spoken out loud. A morning walk with no weight on your back. You start small. But over time, you become someone new. Someone stronger. Someone better. Someone you can finally be proud of, even if the world never claps for it. And now, to everyone listening, if you've ever been betrayed, broken, or burned by someone you trusted, just know this. Your story doesn't end there. You don't have to be the victim forever. You don't have to live in their shadow. You can rise. You can rebuild. And one day, you'll thank yourself for not staying down. Now it's your turn. Did this story hit you somewhere real? Did you feel it in your chest the way I felt it while telling it? Then don't just scroll away. Like this video if the ending gave you chills. Share it with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. And subscribe, hit that bell icon, because we've got more raw, real, and powerful stories coming soon. Drop your city in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? And most of all, tell me this, was the justice satisfying? Did the ending give you peace? Let's talk about it in the comments. Your voice matters here. I'm Colton Royce, and this was my story. Thank you for walking through the fire with me. We're not done. We're just getting started.